In this presentation, we will generate, analyze, print, and export to Excel a journal entry report and financial statement reports after the second month of operations. In other words, we've entered 2 months of operations into our problem at this point. We're going to enter the normal financial statements, those being the balance sheet and income statement, analyze those, print those, organize those. We also entered adjusting entries and reversing entries. If we want to think about those and look at those separately or specifically, we will do that with a journal entry report so we can analyze what those adjustments are, think about how we can present them, and possibly give them to others within QuickBooks Online. For more accounting information and accounting courses, visit our website at accountinginstruction.info. Here we are in our Get Great Guitars file. We're going to go down to the reports. We're going to start with the balance sheet, then the income statement or profit and loss. We're going to review those reports. We're going to group those reports, and then we'll go to the journals. So we'll select the reports. We're going to go to the balance sheet report, and then up top, we're going to change the report date from 01/01/19 to 02/28/19, the end of February. Note that the beginning date doesn't matter as much if we're just running a standard balance sheet as of the end of the time period, which we are here because it will be as of a point in time. We're going to go ahead and run that report. If you're working along with our problem, then you can go through these and check these balances. If you're working just standard and creating balance sheet reports and reviewing your month-end financial statements, then you want to basically go through the balance sheet and check these account balances, and you could typically do that too outside verification. You go through the balance sheet, look at each line item, and see if you can verify each line item on the balance sheet. If you can do so, you're also helping out and verifying certain accounts on the profit and loss indirectly. So if anything is off or you see any problems on the balance sheet and you're working through this problem, we will then do the adjusting entries and take a look at the adjusting entries, and that will give us more detail to find where that problem may be. So we're going to scroll up top and we're going to go ahead and print this out in the normal fashion we've seen in the past, first by customizing the balance sheet. We're going to have the header and footer, remove the date, time, and report basis as we've seen in the past. We're going to remove the pennies, remove the cents, make it bracketed or negative numbers, and show negatives with red. So then we will run that report. There's what we have. Now we're going to go back up top and we're going to export this report to Excel. We'll export them to Excel and then think about combining them together as we've seen in the past into one PDF using a printer option, the Qt PDF printer, to do so. So we will export this to Excel. Our ultimate goal is going to be to group these items together. We can then print them and display them to others in a nice way so the presentation will look good. So we're going to make a new section. We're in the GGG file. I'm going to make this section 10. I'm going to right click and make a new folder. We'll just call it section 10. So section 10 is what we're on now. And we're going to select that item. And then I'm going to adjust the name and just call it a balance sheet. And we'll put the date as of 02/28/19 and save that report. We'll keep this report open and then make another tab. So if I'm going to right click on the tab up top, we're going to duplicate that tab. I'm going to pull the one from the left to the right so that now we have the balance sheet and then the new tab where we will create the profit and loss by selecting the reports at the bottom. So we'll select reports at the bottom. We will then create the profit and loss report, opening that up, changing the dates up top from 01/01/19 to 02/28/19, and then we can go and run that report. So note that this now is for a 2-month time period. We have January and February for the 2-month time period. And so if you scroll down here and you're checking these numbers, you want to be able to check that for the 2 months. So if you scroll down, you can check these numbers off to your data. And obviously in practice, we would check these numbers by doing a comparison oftentimes is one of the major ways that we will be able to check the numbers from one month to another month. If it's a beginning business, then it's difficult for us to verify these accounts. It's not as easy for us to do the outside verification as with the balance sheet accounts, which we can typically find some method to verify as of a point in time. These are timing account performance accounts, which we check in part by fixing the balance sheet accounts because the other side of them will be here. So here's these items. I'm going to adjust this now and see if we can do this a period by period comparison. So we're going to say, to do that, I'm going to keep this range this time and go to the total column and make months. And that'll give us a run that report. And that'll give us January and February, the full month. So now you can see January and February and the total. So you can go through this and check your numbers here. Of course, there's going to be a lot of deviation. It being the first couple months of operations, we had a lot of things that were different. But that's how the comparison, one way we can see this comparison. We're going to go ahead and print or export this report as well. We'll start off by customizing as we have in our practice. We're going to scroll down and go to the header and footer. We'll remove the date, time, report basis. Scroll back up. No cents. It has cents, but no cents, no pennies. Remove and make it negative and have red numbers. So then we are going to run that report and then export that report. So we'll go to the export to Excel. Same process. We're going to go up top. It's already going where we want it. So we'll just call this the P&L for, let's just say at the end of February, 02/28/19. Save that report. The next thing we'll take a look at is a journal report for the journal entries, the adjusting entries we made. We won't do another transaction by date report because we did that as of the end of us entering the data. So if you have questions about that or something's off here, then you can go back to that transaction list by date report. We are now going to concentrate on the adjusting journal entries. So we're going to right click up top once again and duplicate the tab. I'm going to pull the one from the left to the right. So now I've got the balance sheet, profit and loss, new tab. Within the new tab, we're going to go to the reports at the bottom. Going to scroll down, and this is going to be in the accounting tab typically. So if we scroll down, we want the For My Accountant. So I'm going to open up For My Accountant, and we're looking for the one that it's called Journal, because we're looking specifically for journal entries, transactions. We're going to select that item. And then we have this detail. So here's going to be the detailed report. And you can see it's a report that basically has debits and credits. So if we scroll to the right, we see the debits and credits. So we see like kind of the activity, the journals behind what's going on. And this is a good report to take a look at because you can look at these different types of things. If you're curious about the debits and credits that are being created, you can go through here and say, here's a check. And I know what the data input screen looks like. If I check on that check, we've seen the effect on the financial statements. Then you can go into the check and say, well, here it is there. What's it do in terms of debits and credits? What is it doing in terms of debits and credits? And you can go into this report, and then you can start to figure out, what QuickBooks is doing in terms of debits and credits. And you can learn debits and credits, in a reverse kind of engineering this way. Here's a deposit. Here's the debit and credit on the deposit. Deposit, here's an invoice. Complicated transaction and invoice. Look at all that's going on with the debit and credit. It's going to show us that for the invoice. So you can go here, here's a payment. You can see the debit and credit. What we want, however, are just going to be the adjusting entries. We want to see the debits and credits for the adjusting entries. So we're going to scroll up top, and we're going to change the dates once again. And we only need one date range, and that's going to be for February 28th, because that's when we entered all of our adjusting entries. And then we'll make one for March 1st to see all of our reversing entries. So we'll make this as of 02/28/19, and then the second date is going to be 02/28/19. And by the way, if you're going through this and you don't see the same transactions, that's because of course the dates were different, and your dates will default when you first create the report to whatever date is currently there. And if you're doing it at a later date, you might not have any data. So just change the dates and you'll see this information. Again, you can go through here and you can see all the data. Here's all the checks we wrote at the end. Here's the bill, and you can see all these transactions. Now, again, what we're concerned with, of course, is the adjusting entries. So we want the ones that are actually journal entries that say adjusting entry. And those are the ones that are new to us. So we're going to scroll back up top and see if we can filter this report so that it just shows journal entries and not other transaction types. To do that, we'll scroll up top. We're going to customize this report, and we're going to go to the Filters tab. So we want to go to Filters, And we want to look at transaction type. We don't want all the types. We just want basically the journal entries. So I'm going to select that transaction type, and we just want the journal entries, the ones that don't have any other form. QuickBooks put it in there just as a journal entry, or we put it in there directly as a journal entry. And so there's what we want. We're then going to run that report. And now we're going to just have the journal entries. And typically they're just going to be our journal entries that we entered for the adjustments. We might have some others, and because for example, this transaction was a journal entry, it's not an adjusting journal entry. So note that we have our little thing here that says adjusting entry. So these are the new ones, the ones that have an ADJ, adjusting entry. We could think about how to filter it further, but we may not need to do it here. We can export this to Excel, and if we need to filter it further or adjust the reports before we give them to someone, we can do it there too, and that might be a faster option. So in any case, these are the new adjustments that we had. We can see the debits and credits that we created. Here's the debits and credits, debits and credits. You can go through these adjustments if your balance sheet and income statement or profit and loss were not in balance. Go through these adjustments and see if we've entered these adjusting entries correctly. Look at the debits and credits and the account. So the account and the debit and credit. If these line up, and we lined up before to the prior section, section 9, when we had the transaction detail, then everything should be good. Everything should line up. If it doesn't, then you can obviously go into this transaction and make any change that you need to. Also, if it doesn't, you may want to change the date, most likely to a future date. And because you might have, if you're working in the current time period that's later than this time period, then it probably entered the data in the current time period. And so all you need to do is find that, run the report as of a later date. Be careful about the reversing entries, because those should be there and they should be labeled as reversing entries, which will be on March 1st. But any date other than February 28th or March 1st, that's later, it will probably be something that you just need to change the date and then pull it back into this time period. So I'll scroll down here slowly. You can take a look at these and think about these in journal entries and adjust those. If you want to start with the total, that might be the first place to start and see if that totals out, and then go back in and see everything else. Now we're going to go ahead and scroll back up and export this report. So we'll do the same kind of thing for this report. We're going to customize it. We're going to scroll down. We're going to go to the header and footer. We're going to remove the date and time, and then scroll back up and remove the pennies and make it bracketed for negative and red for negative. Then we'll run that report again, and then we'll export that report. So I'm going to go to the export to Excel, and it's going to the place we want it to go. So I'm just going to call it, let's call it adjusting journal entries. That's probably what we'll call it when we give it to someone. So rather than just journal, and of course we could change the name here to adjusting journal entries and save it, or memorize that report. So we'll save that. There we have that. Now I want to make another journal for the next day for March, and that's going to be the reversing entries. So to do that, let's make another tab again. So I'm going to right click, we love these tabs, and duplicate. So I'm going to duplicate, and now we have another tab, and it's already got our report open. So we just want to change the date up top. So I'm going to change it to 03/01/19 to 03/01/19, just that one date. And that'll give us the reversing entries that we entered as of the first day of the following time period. And then if we scroll down here, we'll see that we should have just our reversing entries. Again, we have this one, which is a journal entry. It doesn't say reversing entry, so it's not really a reversing entry, but the ones we have are reversing are labeled, and we filtered through them. So if we scroll down, then here's our reversing entry. Look, we just have the two reversing entries. You can check those out. You might want to check the totals first and then check them out. If those are right and you had everything correct in the prior section, section 9, then your balance sheet and income statement should tie out. If they're not right, check the dates, go to a future date, see if it's a date thing. And if it's not, then you can either adjust the entry or make a new one. Now we're going to do the same thing. We'll export this, drop down, export to Excel. We're going to call this a reversing entries as of 03/01/19, and save that. Now we'll take a look at what we created. If we go into our file, then we're going to say, all right, now we are in section 10. That's what we started. We got this item. And here's our reports. Now, if we wanted to give this to someone, we could go back and we could right-click and zip this file, send to a zipped file, not because it'll just simply compress it, which is nice, so that we might be able to email a larger file and not run into restraints for the amount of data, but also so that we could just attach one file with stuff in it. However, we can also put this all in one tab. So we'll work on that too, and or save it as a PDF file in one tab. So that's what we'll take a look at. First of all, let's look at these two accounts for the reversing entries and the adjusting entries. So let's go to these are the new ones. So here's the adjusting entries. Let's see what that looks like in Excel and see if it needs any kind of adjustments for it. Also note that when I downloaded this, it might have downloaded a little bit different. Looked kind of like Chrome, but it downloaded a little bit different because I'm using a different browser called the Brave browser. It's kind of similar to Chrome. So if you wanted to test that out, you can test that browser out. It's got some different features. So I'm going to open it up now and we'll take a look at any kind of adjustments. Here's our journal. Typically, we're going to go back to the page layout and then see if it fits on a page. It doesn't. So usually we're going to have to adjust this. I'm going to go to the page. I'm going to go to the page layout up top, and then we'll go to the orientation landscape. And so there, that looks like it does it. If I go back to the normal view, now it fits on a page. That's nice. So we have that going for us. Also note that if I give this to someone, I really only want these adjusting entries, and we filter it out to just journal entries, but we may not need these items. So it might be easier for me to just for us to adjust this right now by saying, I'm just going to delete these items. I don't need these items. We could do that by just deleting the whole row, selecting this column, this whole column, put your cursor on 6, and then scroll down to this journal entry to 13. So row 6 to row 13, let go, and then right click on that selected area and delete. And it should delete the whole thing. And now we just have our adjustments. Now the total down here won't make any more sense. This total doesn't help. So I can select that total row, right click and delete. So that's one way we can kind of shore this up and save that. Now we might want to do a similar thing to and we may not need some of these other, we don't need the name column here. It's not doing anything. So if we wanted to select that and delete the name, notice this item up here is a merged cell, so it'll kind of do funny things for you. So just be aware of that. So if I go here, I can't right click on this cell, but if I go down here and right click, I can delete. And that's not the one I wanted, so I'm going to undo. And then I'm going to do it on column E. And then I can't right click up here because it'll do that, but I can do it down here, right click and delete. And so that's a couple things we could do to shore that up. I'm going to save that. Let's open up the other report and do similar stuff there. We got the reversing entries. Selecting the reversing entries, we'll open that up. So here it is, looks same kind of thing. If I go to the second tab, it doesn't fit on one page. I can go to the page layout, setup, and then orientation landscape and adjust that orientation. We can go back to the normal view then, and we can do some of the similar type of adjustments. We don't need the name column, so I can select the name column, right click and delete it. And this first one isn't a reversing entry, so we can go to this 6 down to 9, right click and delete those rows. I know I'm doing this fast, but this is just a demo of, this isn't an Excel course, so I don't want to spend. And then on the total, we'll delete the total row. I'm going to right click and delete the total row. So that's just a couple things. We can summarize that, save that. Now we might want to put all these on one page so that we can present them either as an Excel document or as a PDF file. So to do that, I'm going to open one more Excel document to see how we could format these into one document. So here's our Excel document that we're going to use for that. It's a fresh page. We're going to start it off with the balance sheet. So let's open the balance sheet first and say that's the first one we want. Here it is. It looks good. So I'm just going to highlight the whole thing, Control A on the keyboard, or just this triangle up top. I'm going to right click on it and copy it. Go back to our other sheet. I'm doing this fast because we've seen it before. I'm going to right click and paste it in A1. Make sure you're in A1. And then I'm going to paste the tab. So I'm going to go back over to our balance sheet, double click on the balance sheet tab, Control C on the keyboard to copy it, and then go back to our other tab, double click on the name, Control V, V as in Victor, to paste it. So there we have that. Now we're going to add another tab. So here's another tab. Let's do the profit and loss. So we'll have to open up the profit and loss, the P&L. Here we have it. Now we're going to copy the whole thing, Control A, or select the triangle, right click on the selected area and copy. Then we're going to go back to our prior tab with nothing on it in that sheet. It's on the second sheet. A1, right click and paste the first one. Then we'll have the tab name. I'm going to go back to the prior tab because they named it so nicely. It looks good there. So I'm going to double click on it. Control C to copy. Can't do the right click there. Control C on the keyboard. Go back to my prior sheet. Double click on the sheet name. Control V as in Victor to paste. And there it is. So now we'll do the journal entries, the two journal entry tabs that we adjusted. So we'll add another one. We're going to go back to the journal entry. Here's the journal entry tab. We're going to have the whole thing, Control A or the triangle. Right click on the selected area and copy. And then we'll go back to our report again. So we'll go back to this area with the sheet that is blank. Right click in A1 and paste. And then we'll go back to our sheet and get the sheet name, journal. So, and that's probably not good. So I'm going to copy that and we'll go back to our sheet and double click and journal. It's probably not what we want. Journal, we want adjusting entries really. So we're going to have to do something different. ADJ entries. So let's call it that. And then we'll make one more. Let's do this one more time. And we're going to go back over and we're going to say, now we want these items. We're going to copy this, the triangle, right click and copy. We're going to go back to our form, A1, right click and paste. And I'm going to call these reversing entries. Reversing entries. Okay, and then we'll have that. So now notice we're going to probably have to reformat these two, and we might not notice that until we look at the print options. So if we were to try to print this on one document, then one PDF file, so that we can attach one PDF file with all our financials, we can go to the File tab. We can go to Print. We're going to use that cute PDF printer. Instead of one page, we're going to print the entire workbook like so. And now we're going to go through this and go, that looks good. It's on 2 pages, but it's 1 page column wide. That's all I really need. That's okay. And then all the journal entries messed up. It's on 2. That's not acceptable, right? Because I can't give that. I don't want someone to have to go to taping things together to see the last column. So so the last 2 are not good. So I'm going to go back then and say, all right, now we got to go back to these 2 tab and we need to fix them again. How? Well, the easiest thing to do is to go to the page layout tab and the page setup group orientation and change it to landscape. Before I do that, however, you might want to delete this. You could delete this column. You could make this column a lot shorter and have everything portrait so that it's all the same when you give it to someone. It's all portrait rather than having a landscape, especially if you're going to staple something together, because then it gets kind of messy. But whatever is best to do. So you're going to go here. We're going to make it landscape, and there we have it. And then we'll do the same for this item. We're going to go here and go, all right, page orientation and landscape. Okay, now it fits on a page. Let's check it out again. Reports. We're going to go to the print item, entire workbook. If we scroll down, we're going to say, yeah, that looks good. That'll work. That'll work. Now it's all on 1 page wide. That's all we need. So there's 1 item on the second page, which is kind of funny, but that's okay. At least it's not, we don't have to tape anything together. And then that one's good. So that we're good there. We're going to say, all right, let's print that. We're going to put this into our GGG file. It's going to be section 10. And I'm just going to call it section 10 reports. And then save that. And then we want to save this document, this Excel document. I'm going to File, Save As, and Browse, and put this into that same folder because this was a blank Excel worksheet. Into GGG, section 10. Once again, we're going to call it a section 10 reports, but it's not a PDF file. It's an Excel file, and we will then save that. And then if we close this back out, then note what we can provide to people. We can give them the detail. We can say, hey, here's the actual reports in a PDF format, just kind of like a paper type, digital paper format. And so there's the balance sheet. There's the income statement or profit and loss. And there's the journal entries. And again, now that it's a landscape, not too bad when you open it this way. If you had to print it and it was landscape, then of course the state, they're going to be going a different way, and you got to turn the page around and all that kind of stuff. But in any case, there's that. And then here's the other journal. So that's one way we can provide this. And we might want to put up top reversing entries. It would be nicer if we relabeled this reversing entries and adjusting entries up top. They should know by the date. But again, presentation, we want to make it nicer. And if we close that back out, we can also give them this report, whoever, our supervisor, our instructor, our client. We can also give this report and say, hey, if you need to make any changes, if you don't like the title and you want to call it reversing entries or adjusting entries or whatever, then go ahead and use this one to do so, and then you can print it out again if you so choose. For more accounting information and accounting courses, visit our website at accountinginstruction.info.